Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session. So as part of day 2, we want to facilitate guided tactical conversation around key trends in specific verticals. And in this room, we're going to be talking about trends in the retail space. Now, with that said, much of what we're going to discuss today is going to be applicable to all verticals because we're going to be chatting about trends around customer experience, loyalty, and the connected tech stack. So we're going to start the session with a quick presentation on those trends, and then I'm going to be joined for a fireside chat with 2 members of Movable Inc's client experience team. So I have had the chance to get to know many of you over the last 2 years that I've been with Movable Inc, and I also got to meet many of you over the last day and a half. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Julio Lopez, and I'm an Associate Director of Client Strategy focusing on the retail vertical. The client strategy team, the team that I'm on, represents the strategic consulting arm of Movable Inc. So we partner with the client experience team to develop innovative solutions to executive-level initiatives. FYI, I have been working on retail strategy for the last 10 years in Europe and the US, and been with Movable Inc for 2 years. So I'm very happy that I get to share the stage with you guys and share some of that knowledge with you. So we're going to guide today's conversation around the trend between loyalty and the connected tech stack. And what we're going to discuss is the challenges as well as the opportunities that the interconnectivity of the two affords us as digital marketers. So we're going to start with the very basics. Why loyalty? Well, at its core, loyalty represents a balanced value exchange between the retailer and the customer. And that value exchange occurs in 2 ways, financially and emotionally. For the retailer, financial value is derived from the incremental sales that come from their more loyal customers. And emotional value is derived from the brand advocacy and word-of-mouth marketing from those loyal customers. On the customer side, financial value is derived from the benefits they receive from the program. And emotional value is derived from the recognition that they get from the brands with which they choose to engage. So it's also important because 65% of our sales will come from our existing customers. And we all know that it is much, much, much more costly to acquire a new customer than it is to retain one. But we are all digital marketers, and we inherently understand the value of customer loyalty. So the question really is, what can we do to enhance it, and how do we make our programs better? Well, first, we need to understand the voice of the customer and understand what they report as being the factors of loyalty program attrition. And we have 4 factors that we're going to be discussing today. That is that it takes too long to earn rewards, the rewards are irrelevant, there are too many communications from the program, and those communications themselves are irrelevant. So it's no surprise that with these factors at play, we see an overall program attrition rate of 54%. So what we need to do in order to combat that is give customers what they want. And that is programs that are easy to use, that provide great discounts, and that are easy to understand. So how do we achieve that with email? Well, we're going to break down those 4 factors, and we're going to use this very, very simplified email to guide the conversation. So we're going to start with the first one. It takes too long to earn rewards. So from a program design perspective, what we're seeing is that a lot of retailers are rewarding customers for their overall engagement with the brand. So that could be anything from following the brand on social media to maybe having them complete their profile. But the crux of this customer perception that it takes too long to earn rewards really stems from the fact that many times they don't understand where they stand within that loyalty program. So generally what we see is that a brand will send a message informing the customer that they have earned enough points to redeem for a reward. They'll engage with that communication, and then they'll continue to accrue points, and then they'll hit another point and get another communication that they're able to redeem for another reward. The challenge is that the time between these 2 communications is too great, and so the perception becomes that it takes too long to earn rewards. So what we need to do as marketers is create transparency between the time of those two communications. And we do that through real-time data visualization. With this data visualization, we're able to inform the individual where they stand within the program and how they're progressing towards their next reward. Another trend that we're seeing is that retailers are changing earn activities that are recommended based on points balance. So we are able to underscore the fact that rewards are actually within reach by showing activities that they can do right now in order to hit the next threshold. So in this example, we are showing the lowest value activity that will put the individual at a point where they can earn their next reward. When it comes to irrelevant rewards, that also goes hand in hand with irrelevant communications. When we think about loyalty messaging, we're talking about two separate messages that we're trying to drive home. And that is earn activities and burn activities. And both of them have to be personalized. So in order to do that, what we are seeing is that a lot more brands are tapping into behavioral information to decide what to show based on data. So it's data-driven decision-making with behavioral targeting. So what we are seeing is that brands are actually categorizing the rewards that are available and matching them up with the way that the product taxonomy is listed on the website so that we can layer in behavior on the website and purchase information to surface relevant rewards that the individual will want to redeem. Now, the next pillar was the program sending too many communications. This is actually fairly simple. What we are seeing more and more is that brands are merging loyalty and promo. So they are able to take content that they built out for their loyalty programs and include it in communications that they would normally be sending out as BAU process. What makes that possible is the fact that many of these brands are taking a modular approach to email. So they're able to take one of these content blocks and easily slot it into any communication. But the most important thing to focus on is personalization. Across loyalty programs, members do not feel that the program is interacting with them through the right channels, at the right moments, or with the right messages. So it's no surprise that only 20% of members feel that they are very satisfied with the levels of personalization. The trouble is that personalization, by definition, relies on data. And data lives across your entire marketing stack. So our focus should be to activate data across the tech stack to deliver these highly personalized experiences. Every brand in this room already has an ecosystem of vendors that you can activate in order to deliver cohesive personalization across channels. So these are all examples of different vendors or data sources that you can activate. The challenge is that many of these relationships are owned by different stakeholders in your organizations. So it requires you to work cross-functionally in order to activate the tech stack. The challenge is that most marketers are not incentivized to work cross-functionally, even though a significant number of senior executives believe that cross-functional communication is essential to deploying any digital strategy. So while the tech stack could work together to deliver this cohesive, personalized experience, it's up to you to make the vision come alive. And as you heard yesterday, one of the ways that Movable Inc is helping our clients begin these conversations is through the launch of the Movable Inc Exchange, which provides information around the different integrations that Movable Inc has launched with our clients. But the opportunities are literally endless. So I encourage you to talk to your account management team to identify opportunities within your own individual tech stack. So unlocking value from the MarTech stack is not without challenges. And what we see reported across all verticals is that we have to consider the fact that we are integrating across legacy systems. We are combining data from different sources. We have to scale across the organization, and we also have to manage the complexity of deployment to make sure that it's actually feasible. But there is a very simple answer to the challenge of personalization, and that is integrated APIs. So what we're seeing more and more is that instead of the brands that we are working with building every single email from scratch from top to bottom, they're relying on partner APIs and the data returned in those APIs to populate each and every section of the email. So in this example, what we're seeing is that from top to bottom, whether you're pulling in loyalty through somebody like CrowdTwist or next best action through somebody like Pega, every single piece of this email is building itself upon open. Additionally, waterfall logic is applied to each of these content modules to decide whether or not to show that individual piece of content. And the most wonderful thing about APIs is that they are in fact real time. And if marketing personalization is about delivering the right message at the right time, then we see that this approach results in increased revenue growth and increased customer engagement. But what's interesting is that not every marketer understands this. Take, for example, loyalty programs. 73% of consumers say that they expect real-time updates to their points balance, for example. But only 39% of marketers believe that this is a point of differentiation. So clearly, there's a disconnect. And if we are to deliver cohesive experiences and deliver on what customers want, then we need to make sure we're giving them exactly what they expect, which is real-time experiences. So if our end goal is to drive brand loyalty, and customers are telling us that we need to acknowledge their loyalty and deliver personalized communications, then how can we best leverage an integrated tech stack to drive that brand loyalty? So to have a deeper conversation around that, we're going to jump into a fireside chat with two of Movable Inc's more senior members of the client experience team. And as an FYI, you will be able to connect with these lovely folks as well as myself through the Think Summit app, which you can download through this QR code. So please help me welcome Tu Trang Ho and YJ Tung. Thank you. Whew. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for bringing my iPad. So let's start with some introductions. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves, your professional background, and your roles at Movable Inc?
Yeah, I'm Tu Trang Ho. I'm lead client experience manager at Movable Inc. I've been with Movable Inc for 3.5 years now, working with our clients in Canada. Great to see many familiar faces in the audience, as well as New York. Prior to Movable Inc, I was at a social curation SaaS company where YJ and I actually worked on the same team together, working with many of our retail clients.
And hi, everyone. My name is YJ Tung, team lead at Movable Inc. I started my career as a digital media analyst at Inc and Fast Company, where then I transitioned to the tech space in various MarTech roles. And that brings us to Movable Inc, where I originally got started in the New York office, but now support our Pacific Northwest region out of San Francisco. And one in particular, I help support a lot of those REI use cases found in those pamphlets from yesterday.
So clearly, we have a lot of brain power on the stage. So we're all very excited to hear what you have to share with us today. So you're responsible for managing Movable Inc's relationships with many clients across different verticals. Are there any common challenges that you're seeing across those verticals? And maybe, YJ, we can start with you.
Yeah, definitely. So two of the main challenges I see are getting buy-in from the stakeholders, getting the right people involved, and how to get them on your side. And two, like you mentioned, data lives in so many different places. A marketer sometimes doesn't even know that the data exists, let alone how to access it.
Yeah, and I think QA processes can get complicated as well, especially when you have multiple partners and platforms involved. And second, I think time is a big deal too. So I think everyone in this room is probably really strapped for time all the time.
Yeah, so YJ said, and Tu Trang, same for you, a lot of the challenges that you're mentioning that you're seeing across these different verticals are directly related to what we just saw in the presentation. So Tu Trang, let's say with you, how would you recommend that a brand get started on employing some of the strategies that we've been discussing today?
Yeah, I think the first thing is identify the data. So what data is available within your tech stack and in your internal systems. And then you also want to parse out which data points are actually really important to your loyalty program. So what are the core value drivers? And as you're doing that, make sure that you're keeping track of any missing data or data gaps. And then lastly, you want to actually identify where this data lives. So does it live within my ESP? Is it in an API? These are all important questions because the data will inform what your short-term low-hanging fruit wins are versus what may be more of a phase 2 solution.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, it's about doing an audit or getting a lay of the land to understand what's feasible right now and what we have available. So YJ, do you agree with that, or is there anything else that you would add?
Yeah, definitely agree. So we understand that marketers are really busy these days and often focused on other things. So like the Hilton team mentioned yesterday, we strongly encourage our clients to rely on us, lean on us and your other tech partners. We're more than happy to do some sleuthing to see what data may be available on your site, or even have these conversations with your other tech partners or even your internal tech teams.
So is this how you normally approach this with this conversation with your clients?
Yeah, definitely. So I can even give you an example of a recent client on-site that I had where we ran through an exercise where we just asked him to list out all the tech partners that he knew them as a company we're working with. It doesn't matter what capacity or anything. We then took that list and plotted it against an opportunity matrix to see what had the highest potential. Mm-hmm. And from there, we actually found that our partnerships teams had a lot of these existing relationships, which made it really easy to get the right people involved to facilitate the next steps.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm sure that your clients and anybody else who's worked with any Movable Inker appreciates that level of partnership. So Tu Trang, from your point of view, how do you approach helping your clients make sense of the data that's available?
Yeah, I mean, I think like YJ said, whatever, like this is a business as usual activity for all client experience managers at Movable Inc. But we try to make that more strategic too. So we go a step further and make sure that the solutions we're recommending actually ladder back up to the organization's business objectives and KPIs.
Okay, so say that you've identified the data points, you've identified a use case, and you understand what the strategy behind that is. Is it difficult, in your experience, to launch some of the use cases?
We get that question a lot. The reality is that Movable Inc's platform can actually easily ingest data from any source, whether that is from your website, a CSV, an API. I think the unique part of our platform is that we can mix and match several sources of data together within a single template or email, while making sure that the design of course, remains cohesive and also always on brand.
YJ, anything to add?
Yeah, but it's also important to keep in mind that not all data integrations are created equal. Something as simple as a direct UGC setup may be really easy to get started, whereas something like a loyalty integration with custom filtering and waterfall logic might require some additional scoping and discovery.
Okay. So are there any best practices that you think are critical to launching something that's a little bit more sophisticated?
Yeah, for best practices, I think one is approaching it with a testing mentality, and two is keeping it an iterative process. So V1 of your project is always going to be the most basic use case, and usually that's to make sure that integration works and no harm is being done. And then from there, you continue to add layers of complexity while continuing to optimize and building on the different levers that you can pull that have an influence on your performance metrics.
And I think that's really important. If you're taking this iterative approach to your launch, then I think also having a clear testing plan is important, an important component of that launch. So let's bring it back to the topic at hand, loyalty and the integrated tech stack. YJ, what do you think makes loyalty programs so different than BAU marketing messages?
Yeah, so customers these days participate in many, many different loyalty programs, and each has their own different rules. It's impossible to keep track of, right? So it's really important for a marketer to focus on how to effectively communicate the economics of their program while also effectively communicating the incentive and benefits to the customer. With that in mind, it's a balancing act to balance that loyalty messaging with that promotional messaging, sometimes even within the same communication.
Right. TJ?
Yeah, I mean, additionally, I think that's why the interconnected tech stack is so important as well, because it's going to be impossible to get your strategy right if you can't activate any of your data. And the less data you're able to activate, I think the more your hands are tied, and then you're basically going to be forced into delivering a generic experience.
Yeah, and I think that if we all stop and think about the type of customer that joins a loyalty program, that customer is going to demand a more personalized experience, probably above and beyond a non-member. So it's important that we avoid those generic experiences. So we keep coming back to this conversation around data, and we touched on during the presentation, we touched on the value of real time. So what if no APIs exist to support that real time component?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a real challenge. I've come across that with many of our clients. Generally, we usually recommend that you start by creating personalized modules using static profile data just as the initial implementation, but also pair that with Movable Inc's contextual data like location, time, device, anything at time of open, just that you're adding that real-timeness to the email. And then second, if you guys have any loyalty-related content on your website, we can actually turn your website into a data source and actually web crop in real time things like product recommendations, the latest available offers, anything that might be loyalty-related.
And clearly, there's a lot of knowledge here that we all need to tap into. YJ, anything that you need to add?
Yeah, I think it's important to always be moving towards that real-time data, even if it doesn't currently exist. Because like you mentioned in your presentation, consumers are craving for that real-time information about themselves. And the only way to deliver that at the moment of engagement is through those real-time APIs.
Wonderful. So clearly, we've talked about this iterative approach to launching different use cases, and it's great to hear how each of you is helping the clients in your patch to reach their full potential. If you've ever heard me on a webinar or in any other presentation, one of the things that I always like to highlight is that your vendors, Movable Inc included, in any given week or any given month will see more campaigns across different verticals than you will see in a year. And so the reason we highlight that is that there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience that comes from tapping into that aspect from all your vendors, because we see all the challenges that may come up and the pitfalls that we need to avoid. On the flip side, what we see is that what we understand is that you understand your business more thoroughly than maybe we ever will, because you're living it and breathing it day in and day out. And so there's power in combining those two aspects, the knowledge that we bring from a more broad perspective across different verticals, and then the knowledge that you have around the strategies that you're looking to implement to drive your business forward. So it looks like we're coming up on time. Are there any key takeaways that you would like to leave the audience with?
We love working with our clients or partners every day, but our success is ultimately your success too. So I think the message is basically, let's make sure we continue to collaborate really closely together every single day.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I would say don't be afraid of the tech. APIs are a common language, and once you understand that, that can be translated across many, many uses.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for being on stage with us today, and thank you all for joining us for our session.
Thank you.